Good evening, members and visitors. Welcome. It's 5:30 on Thursday, 15th of July, 2021. Welcome to this Partnership Scrutiny Committee meeting. I'll just read a statement. This meeting will be recorded and made available to view on the Council's website, except for discussions involving confidential or exempt items. Therefore, the images and audio of those individuals speaking will be publicly available to all to see via the recording on the Council's website at www.caerphilly.gov.uk. So on our agenda, the first item on our agenda this evening is to receive apologies for absence. I'm aware of 4 apologies, which are Councillor Cuss, Councillor Mann, Councillor Sorrellis and Councillor Sargent. Do we have any other apologies, please?
I'm not aware of any, Chair. Councillor Lowry Jones from Mentor Iaith has given apologies.
Okay, thank you. Do we need to take a roll call?
Can I just ask if my mother's apologies can be added in case she isn't able to join?
Yes, we can do that. I can take a roll call, Chair, if you want.
Yes, please.
Members of the committee, when I call your name, if you could just indicate your presence, please. Councillor Adams.
Present.
Councillor Aldworth.
Present.
We've noted Councillor Christine Forehead in case she can't join us. Councillor Elaine Forehead.
Yeah.
Councillor Harding.
Present.
I can't see Councillor Johnson at the meeting. Councillor Kirby.
Present.
Councillor Miles.
Present.
I can't see Councillor Simmons. Councillor Taylor.
Present.
And Councillor Whittle.
Here.
And Councillor Hussey, obviously from South Wales Fire and Rescue Service as well.
Yeah,
Authority. Thank you.
Thank you, Kath. Moving on to item 2 on our agenda, which is declarations of interest. Councillors and officers are reminded of their personal responsibility to declare any personal and/or prejudicial interests in respect of any item of business on this agenda in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000, the Council's Constitution, and the Code of Conduct for both councillors and officers. Are there any declarations of interest, please? I take that as a no. Thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item, item 3, minutes of the Partnership Scrutiny Committee held on the 28th of January 2021. Sorry. Do you want to go through them for accuracy? Page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So I'm prepared to move them as a true record, please.
I'll move as Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. Seconded.
Councillor Mike Adams will second.
Thank you. Do we go to a vote now, please, Kath?
Yes, Chair. Vote will appear for committee members only, please, on the front of the screen.
Thank you.
Chair, I've abstained because I don't think I was at the last partnership meeting.
Thank you.
And I've abstained as well, Chair, because I definitely was not at the last meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Lisa Aldworth, I wasn't there either.
Thank you, Councillor Aldworth. Voting complete, please, Kath. So the minutes were agreed by a majority of those voting. Thank you very much. On to item 4 on our agenda, which is Partnership Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme. Scrutiny Manager Kath, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just direct members to the appendix on the report, which indicates the work programme for the committee. As you can see, the next meeting is on the 27th of January 2022. We normally have as we do on this agenda, the progress update, which are the performance report. But also we've also agreed that we'd have best start in life to do a deep dive in that area. I am aware that on the next agenda item, there's some suggestions into other areas we could look at. So if members are happy to move the work programme as it is at the moment, and obviously we can take any additional items that on the next agenda item.
Thank you for that, Kath. Are members content to accept as is at the moment?
Yes,
Yeah.
Chair.
Yes.
Okay. Do you need to vote on this, please, Kath?
Yes, please, Chair.
Okay. The vote will come up shortly. Colleagues, please vote now. Thank you.
Quick question, Jay.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm on the Fire Authority body, so do I vote for this or not?
No, you're
No.
not a member of the committee. Thank you,
No.
Adrian.
Yeah, the thing is, the vote come up on my screen, that's all.
Yeah, it pops up on everyone's screen, but I think Kath did ask earlier for just members of the committee to vote, but thank you anyway.
That's moved, Chair.
That's carried. Thank you, colleagues. Moving on our agenda then to item 5. Progress update, the CAERPHILLY We Want Wellbeing Plan 2018 to 23, September 2020 to June 2021. I understand Kath Peters will be talking us through this.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations from myself on your appointment as Chair. And good
Very
evening,
kind.
Councillor. Good evening, councillors. It's a fine and sunny evening, and happy to be here. I'm just going to give you a short update on the progress against the wellbeing plan, as the report alludes to. I'll just take you very quickly through the report. The last meeting of the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board was on the 24th of June, and the reports which are appended to this one before you today actually take you from September to June. So your last meeting in January received the reports of the first half of the financial year. This takes you from September, a little bit beyond the end of the financial year, to June. And just also to assure you that even though the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board has dissolved, that the wellbeing plan, which runs until 2023, will be continued to be delivered. And I'll give you a little bit more detail about how oversight will be maintained throughout that period. Reports are shared with you immediately subsequent to the Public Services Board in June, and request for you to consider any witnesses you want to brought forward to answer questions on any of the action areas or enablers. The deadline for that was given up until the 9th of July, and we didn't actually have any requests for in-depth questioning. And just to remind you, your normal process is that you would let ourselves know as coordinators. We would then ask the relevant witnesses to come forward, and either they would attend in person or they would provide a written report. In this case, we don't have any requests for in-depth witnesses to be provided to you. So I will just take you very quickly through some of the other elements of the report. One of the other main things is, and I think this was referenced in your minutes last time, is there's been a refresh of activity of the Public Services Board. Even though the board is dissolved, the wellbeing plan runs until 2023. And one of the things that they were keen to do towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year was to consider a refresh of the wellbeing plan action areas, because they are kind of 2.5 years in now, and also consideration of what partners needed to do in partnership in relation to the COVID recovery. So there are a couple of new partnership activity areas which I'll come to. And as Kath alluded to in your previous report, you may wish to consider these in your forward work programme going forward. You only meet twice a year, and obviously you've got Best Start in Life programmed in for the January 2022 meeting. The current CAERPHILLY Public Services Board website will continue until May 2023, and all board members have agreed to act as a residual CAERPHILLY Public Services Board, in effect a virtual board. They will still be supporting their lead officers to continue to deliver the wellbeing plan. They will still be approving all performance reports. They will still be supporting the scrutiny process, and the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board website will remain in existence until 2023. So in effect, a residual Public Services Board. Just in terms of your forward work programme, and to give you a reminder, across all of the action areas of the 5-year plan, a 5-year plan, you've agreed to look in depth at an action area at each meeting, and you've already seen reports on resilient communities, good health and wellbeing, the natural environment, and at your last meeting in January, apprenticeships and volunteering. And at this evening's meeting, you'll receive a report on safer communities, so effectively the work of the Community Safety Partnership. And for those of you who've been members of this committee for quite a while, you remember that prior to the Wellbeing Plan, you sat as Crime and Disorder Scrutiny Committee. So this is in effect your ability to ask partners how they are dealing with community safety issues. And we were fortunate to have Inspector Boucher here today, who's representing the lead officer. So I'm sure you'll have some questions for them. The remaining areas of the Wellbeing Plan, as I said, Best Start in Life is programmed in for yourselves. There are 3 enabler areas as well: joint working on assets, procurement, and communications and engagement, which is kind of a background enabler area. But as I said, over the latter part of 2020 and the first few months of this year, the PSB asked all its lead officers to consider recovery. So there are 2 new areas which have come into the purview of the Wellbeing Plan effectively. The CAERPHILLY Cares project, which members may be aware of, was launched in April, and that's additional capacities to support our most vulnerable people in communities, both with employability support, any kind of other support they require, and also housing benefits support and sort of financial welfare checks as well. And also the former Resilient Communities action area is now looking at jobs, growth and employment. So it's become very much focused around job growth and employment. So it's morphed into that. So noting that report and the next report, which is around regional local scrutiny, and I'll be able to give you an update on that in the context of the Gwent Public Services Board. It might help you to consider what you would like to examine in future. As I said, the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board website will continue to exist, and performance reports will be there, and all scrutiny processes will be supported until 2023 as well. I think that's it for my update, Chair.
Thank you very much, Kath. There weren't any questions raised on this report at our pre-meeting, but do members who weren't at pre-meeting have any questions of Kath on the report, please? No. Kath Forbes-Thompson mentioned earlier, and Kath Peters just mentioned it too, at 5.4 of the report, we are asked to consider what areas we'd like to receive in-depth reports on. As suggested, shall we consider CAERPHILLY Cares and job growth and employment support as future agenda items? What are colleagues' thoughts? Councillor Forehead. No.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was just trying to unmute myself. Would it be possible, I don't know if this is the right forum, if we could look at the tackling poverty strategy through this? Because I know we introduced the strategy some years ago, but we've not really had any outcomes from it. Would that be okay, Kath?
Chair, would you like me to answer that
Yes,
question?
please do.
Okay, so in relation to the tackling poverty strategy, you are right, Councillor Forehead, we had one several years ago, and if you recall, Rob Hartson was our lead, our officer lead on that. The decision was taken when the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act came into being, because it is specifically looking at poverty-related issues, socioeconomic issues. So, for example, you'll see CAERPHILLY Cares is in there. You'll see jobs, growth, and employment is in there. The former anti-poverty strategy was subsumed into the Wellbeing Plan. So therefore, we aren't reporting specifically on the anti-poverty strategy any longer. And the decision was taken that because Future Generations activity is looking at all of those issues, the Wellbeing Plan would pick up on it. Apprenticeships and volunteering, resilient communities would have previously had kind of community regeneration type strands in there, and obviously we've got a very focused area now in terms of jobs, growth and employability, and CAERPHILLY Cares as well. So the anti-poverty strategy has almost been subsumed by the Wellbeing Plan, if that explains.
Absolutely. I'd particularly like to see a focus though on child poverty and how we tackle in that within the borough. Is that possible? If we can have some sort of updates. Okay,
it isn't something that I would be able to answer on, Councillor Forehead, because obviously I just coordinate the Wellbeing Plan. It isn't something, it's not within my gift to say yes, no. It might be an appropriate request to Scrutiny Committee members to make to other officers, if that explains.
Okay, thanks for that, Kath.
Thank you, Kath, and thank you, Elaine, for raising that. We'll liaise with officers outside of the meeting to see if we can pursue that, if that's okay, Councillor Forehead.
That would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Miles, please.
Thanks. In terms of what we should be looking at in the future, I think we ought to plan to look at the procurement area, simply because it's currently marked up as at risk of not achieving any of the performance measures. So for that reason,
what area is that, please, Brenda?
This is the procurement area.
Oh, thank you. Right. Yeah.
Area for procurement. It's one of the areas we haven't looked at yet. Because, like I say, because it's at risk of not achieving that.
Yes, it's clearly not. Yep, it's a good point. It's clearly not Kath Peters' field of expertise, but she may have some knowledge about this, Kath.
Yeah, just to come back on that point, Chair and Councillor Miles, just a reminder for you that the wellbeing plan is about collaborative activity. So I'm presuming, Councillor Miles, that you're talking about the authority's own procurement performance. That probably isn't a matter for this committee. It may be in your other guys' policy and resources scrutiny committee, but it isn't a reflection. It's not reflected within the wellbeing plan. The collaborative procurement activity under the action plan here, I'll just try and summarise this again. I'm not the officer concerned, but it is looking at public sector partners, looking at maximising their procurement power and procurement spend. So and our procurement manager Ian Evans is heavily involved in that work, but he's also talking to the procurement managers across the public services partners as well. So they are looking at some particular work. I'll just reflect on procuring food, etc. It isn't about our council performance, if that explains it to you.
Okay.
Thank you, Kath. Is that Brenda?
Yep.
Okay, thank you both. So there aren't any other hands showing. Can I just pose that question again? Shall we focus on the areas suggested earlier, which are CAERPHILLY cares and job growth and employment for our future agenda items? People content with that? Anyone got any thoughts?
Yes, Chair, I'd be happy with that.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Okay, we'll note that, we'll record that. Thank you very much. Anything else on this item before we move on? Thank you, Kath, again for presenting.
Thank you.
On to item 6 on our agenda, which is safer communities. And I believe we have Natalie Kenny and Inspector Andrew Boucher to present to us, please. Welcome both.
Thank you, Chair, and evening everybody.
Hi.
If it's okay, I'm going to share my screen and just give a short presentation and then hand over to Andrew halfway through, and he's going to pick up some of the more police activity, if that's okay with yourselves.
That's
I'll just
great.
try,
Thank you.
Try and share it. Hope it works. Could you let me know if you can see?
Yes, I can see that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay. So I'm Natalie Kenny, Community Safety Officer for the Council, and I've been asked to come along today by the Chief Inspector, Amanda Thomas, as she was unable to attend, unfortunately. But I am the policy lead for community safety and obviously work in a community safety team. And Inspector Boucher has agreed to come along as well to give a police update and police perspective on some of the items. So we thought we'd just run through some of the work that's highlighted in the wellbeing plan and some of our key themes, and then some of the activity that is ongoing with the Community Safety Partnership. So if I just knock my camera off, because my system is playing up a little bit, if that's okay.
Of course.
So just to give an overview, I'm sure you're well aware of the Community Safety Partnerships, but they were introduced by the Crime and Disorder Act in 1998. And the Safer CAERPHILLY Community Safety Partnerships consists of 5 responsible authorities. So we have the police, the council, the fire and rescue authority, the health board and the probation service. And it's our duty or statutory duty to work in partnership to reduce crime and disorder across CAERPHILLY County Borough and to make the community safer. So some of the items that are included in the community safety portfolio and statutory duties I've listed here just to give a bit of a flavour really of the type of work that we are involved in. But we have a number of statutory duties, including we have to work together basically to share information to reduce crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour across CAERPHILLY. We produce an annual strategic assessment of the crime and disorder for the area, and that's where we would look at and determine what our priorities are for the upcoming 12 months and determine where we fund and place our resources. So we also have a number of duties under counter-terrorism, which I'm going to go into a bit more detail later on, but that's responsibility for the local authorities and other partners around prevent and channel. We work together on community cohesion, work together with Youth Offending Service and the police and other partners to reduce reoffending and combat substance misuse. The CSP has a duty to commission and manage domestic homicide reviews if there's a domestic homicide in Caerphilly. We also work together on serious organised crime, modern day slavery and human trafficking, violence against women and domestic abuse. Also, we have the action plan under the wellbeing plan. We have the Safer Caerphilly element of that, which we feed directly into the PSB. And shortly, we're going to have another duty for the Community Safety Partnership around serious violence. It was due to come in 2021, but we think now it's likely to be early next year. And there will be a duty then on every Community Safety Partnership to produce a strategy for serious violence. So we're working with other colleagues across Wales on that at the moment. So we have a multi-agency group set up to oversee all the community safety partnership work, and that's a Safer Caerphilly working group, which is chaired by Chief Inspector Amanda Thomas, and obviously that reports then directly into the Public Service Board. And part of the Caerphilly Wellbeing Plan, one of the themes is Safer Caerphilly. So within the action plan, we currently at the moment have 5 key themes. So if that's okay with yourselves, I'm going to run through each theme and just give a little bit of a background and some of the activity that we're currently doing with those. But the first one is around hate, intolerance and extremism in our communities. And a major part of that is the Counter-Terrorism and Security Act, where we focus on prevent and channel. Antisocial behaviour is obviously one of our main priorities, and we do a lot of work with partners around that issue. Serious violence and serious organised crime. Community mapping, which is a new theme for us at the moment, which is something we're developing with the police and partners, and to engage or enhance engagement and activity in relation to the nighttime economy. So theme 1 is around prevent and channel, as I've said, and as you're aware that the UK has a counter-terrorism strategy called Contest, and under Contest we have the 4 Ps. So the aim of Contest is to reduce the risk to the UK and its interests overseas from terrorism, so that people can go about their lives freely and with confidence. So the 4 Ps, 1 is to protect the infrastructure. 1 is obviously to prepare the emergency planning, so we're preparing for attacks. Pursue is where the special branch would actively pursue individuals or groups who are at risk. And prevent is where we come in, which is the multi-agency element, where we work together to try to prevent young people and adults from being drawn into terrorism. So prevent aims to reduce the threat to the UK from terrorism by stopping people becoming terrorists or supporting terrorism. And the delivery of that theme really is all around early intervention and safeguarding the individuals and their family. So we have statutory duties on local authority and other agencies around prevent, and it has 3 key objectives, which are to tackle the causes of radicalisation and respond to the ideological challenge of terrorism, safeguard and support those most at risk of radicalisation, and enable those who have already engaged in terrorism to disengage and to rehabilitate. And a big part of prevent that we're involved in is channel. So we have the Counter-Terrorism Act. We also have prevent duty guidance and channel duty guidance, which places a number of duties on us. And each local authority area must have a partnership board in place to oversee prevent delivery. And that was decided a number of years ago in Caerphilly that would be the Community Safety Partnership. So we have a duty to train appropriate frontline staff on prevent. We have to have a designated prevent lead, channel chair and deputy. A channel panel has to be in place. a prevent action plan and referral process, and we assess the risk. So just want to give you some updates really on the type of activity we've done in the last 12 months and the last year or so, really a bit further back than 12 months. But we now have in place a Gwent Regional Contest Board, which oversees the whole of the contest agenda, a Gwent Prevent Group. Rob Hartshorn sits on the contest board along with myself, and I sit on the Regional Prevent Group just to make sure that we're linking up with partners across Gwent. We also have a Gwent Prevent Action Plan, which covers various themes, including communication, risk assessments, the referral process, education are linked into that as well. And we feed that directly, information directly back to the Home Office to ensure that we're meeting all of the duties under the requirements. So governance is via the Community Safety Partnership and the Public Service Board, because it's factored in the Safer Caerphilly Action Plan. So we report into the PSB, but we also report back to the Contest Board. So our governance really is covered off on both sides and then feeding back directly to the Home Office. To date, we've trained over 1,500 staff on Prevent, and there's further sessions planned now for the rest of the year. We do get the majority of our Prevent referrals come from education and schools, where they have concerns over young people. And education staff are really keen on the Prevent training, so we just try to keep them, refreshers going for those. But we also do loads of other departments as well. So our Caerphilly Channel Panel was set up in 2013. It was chaired by myself, and due to recent channel guidance, they've now requested that panels meet monthly if there's a live case. So we currently meet every 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how many cases we have and the risk involved. And currently this year we've adopted 4 cases into channel. So relatively low referrals coming through, and they did drop off significantly last year due to COVID and the schools being closed, but we've started to see that pick up a little bit now. So as I said, designated channel chair, so that's myself. The deputy is Lisa Davis from the Youth Service, and we now have to give our names and details over to the Home Office to ensure that they're aware of us, and we have to go on certain training, and they've also asked us now to have security vetting as well. So we produce an annual Gwent counter-terrorism local profile to assess the risk of all of our threats across Gwent. And then we would look at obviously what we need to put in place to counter those as a Gwent contest board. There's also going to be a new protect duty later this year. So look at assessing the risk really of public buildings in our area. So every local authority will have additional duties. So any public building in the borough with over 100 footfall will need to be involved in the risk assessment, where we can clarify then that we've covered all the safety aspects around the risks of those buildings. So we've preempted that duty coming in, and we've already set up our PSPG, and we've had about 3 meetings now, I believe. And it's a multi-agency group, and that's chaired by Rob Hartshorn. So theme 2 within our Safer Caerphilly Action Plan is antisocial behaviour. And that's always been one of our priorities. I don't think it's ever going to change because it affects so many people. And obviously things like littering, dog fouling, youth annoyance will always be, I think, top priorities for the community. So one of the big things we have in Caerphilly is our Safer Caerphilly 4-strike process. I won't go through that in too much detail, but it's basically 4 stages within that. And, if somebody comes through, there's a referral that they've committed antisocial behaviour in the community, we would send warning letters out. And then if they can continue to commit incidents, they would escalate through that process and would be discussed at a multi-agency meeting. And that's where we would involve partners like social services, education, housing, and we would all get together to look at, what we could put in place really to help that person from committing further incidents and potentially giving support to that family as well. If the behaviour persists, which, sometimes it does, sometimes the early intervention doesn't work, we would be looking then at the legal tools and powers available to us, and that could be a civil injunction in court, a criminal behaviour order which would be attached to a criminal offence, or we have other options like community protection notices, closure notices, and dispersal and public space protection orders. So just to give an idea of the type of figures we have coming through that process, for the last financial year, we had 146 people entering at the strike 1 stage. That went down to 31 at strike 2, 9 people at strike 3, and 1 at strike 4. So the early interventions really do work, and the majority of years we see about a 96 to 99% drop off between stage 1 and 4. So that one person had an injunction at court, and that was an adult male. And the 9 people that at strike 3 would have potentially acceptable behaviour contracts. We would offer them a mentor for 6 months if it's a youth through the Youth Offending Service, and put in various support with that family as well. So just to give some ideas really of the type of other initiatives around antisocial behaviour, we obviously within the council have the community safety wardens. They work very closely with the police on joint operations. So last year, for example, we had 25 joint operations with the wardens, police and partners to tackle antisocial behaviour and crime. We issued 50 warning letters for breach of COVID regulations that were linked to antisocial behaviour offences, and the majority of those were around house parties in the first lockdown. We have grant funding from the PCC and Welsh Government to enable us to fund the community safety staff, but also we fund a lot of projects through Youth Services, Positive Futures, and in the main Youth Offending Service to allow us to run outreach work in the community and engage with the hard to reach young people to try and turn around their behaviour. So just some items there that we do joint patrols. We obviously use a CCTV van that we have access to. That's been particularly handy in recent months where we've put in place dispersal orders with the police. And some stats around the type of numbers that the CSWs are talking to when they're out and about. They've warned over 1,000 people in that year about antisocial behaviour in the community. At present, we have public space protection order consultation going live on Monday. So all of our public space protection orders in CAERPHILLY for antisocial behaviour and drinking alcohol will expire in October this year. So we're looking to extend for a further 3 years all the current orders across the borough. We vary in some to include antisocial behaviour restrictions, and we're also proposing a number of new areas as well. So we'll be promoting that from Monday on the website. Leaflets will be going out to every household, and obviously through social media. So another thing, how we kind of do all this work really and put everything together is through introducing the Safer CAERPHILLY Hub. So a lot of the community safety partners are now co-located in, it's quite a small room in Penalta House on the first floor, but there's the community safety team, police officers, and a number of other agencies where we now all base together to improve information sharing. And I won't touch on that too much because I know Andrew's going to pick that up. And we also have the tasking process where we come together to constantly analyse the crime and disorder stats across the borough. So we know where our priorities are, where our hotspots are, and we can designate resources to those places. So I'm just going to hand over to Andrew to pick up on the rest of the slides, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. How do you want to do this? Do you want me to present the PowerPoint from here on?
Yes, if that's okay. Do you want me to move the slides for you? Is that okay?
If that's okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. So a little bit about the and congratulations, Chair, on your appointment as well.
Thank you.
I didn't want to miss out. So the Safer CAERPHILLY Hub, it is a multi-agency office in Penalta House, but more recently, due to the pandemic, it is predominantly organised via Microsoft Teams, which is really, really useful. It's essentially a forum for vital partnership meetings, which have continued to take place, tackling issues such as organised criminality, antisocial behaviour, other demand driving issues, and where a lot of information and intelligence is shared between those best placed to. During those information is also shared with education, social services in relation to lots of safeguarding issues around vulnerable children, domestic abuse, and especially during the lockdown period where Operation Check ran, we were able to effectively share information on vulnerable individuals in order to allow us to safeguard those. Just as a flavour of those involved in the process is obviously Gwent Police, the Community Safety Team, South Wales Fire Rescue Service, the Community Safety Wardens, Victim Support, Registered Social Landlords, Gwent Serious Violence Coordinators, Community Protection, Cohesion Coordinators, and the Police Prevent Officer. So lots and lots of partners sharing information, all to the better of the public. Next slide, please. Just catch up with you because I've got a couple of screens open, forgive me. So the tasking process is relatively straightforward. So all the partners attend. We meet fortnightly. We'll run through any thematic areas nominated by any of the agencies, and we'll discuss those there. There's an analysis of crime and disorder data, and we'll assess priority locations and individuals, and more relevantly, effective tasking comes from that against those issues. The partners will all commit resources as appropriate. This provides an enhanced information sharing and joint working, and also the community safety wardens and CSOs are then tasked to priority areas. So effectively discussing things that are thematically important and getting everyone on board to deal with those things. So the After Dark initiative is a partnership project focusing on safety around the nighttime economy. Throughout the pandemic, meetings have still been held, and there's been lots and lots of work gone on between Gwent Police and Community Council around licensing. In particular, this work has been strengthened throughout, especially with the changes to legislation and the very frequent changes, which means people have got to catch up and talk about more often. We've had regular patrols of licensed premises. We've also put out dedicated cars and officers to patrol licensed premises, but also inspect and ensure that they're keeping with regulations. And I'm sure you'll see much in the news about those premises who haven't. Just as an example of that, the licensed team throughout the pandemic forwarded 16 objections with several improvement notices and extended 4 licensing applications during that process. Next slide, please. Community mapping is a relatively new initiative that's currently in development. Essentially, under the problem-solving hub within Gwent Police through the community engagement CSOs. It's an exercise in developing a mapping tool of local key individual networks, agencies, that upon investigation of an incident, we can draw upon a database of contacts, which will enable us to better investigate those incidents. So that could be ASB, that could be crime, that could be anything. And the big benefit of that, of course, is it enhances the engagement opportunities as well, and brings back that local connectivity with the police and council. And next slide, please. So organised crime groups and serious violence. The multi-agency organised crime group, which was developed to assist investigations and intelligence gathering. These are just some of the results from the proactivity around organised crime groups in CAERPHILLY. Work goes on every day. It's a really, really important topic. We've had just short of £1 million worth of drugs taken off the streets, seized £170,000 in cash, collectively accumulated 215 years worth of prison sentences, ran 126 proactive investigations, arrested 109 people, executed 52 warrants, 32 suspects were charged and remanded to court. That means they did not get bail. And we've seized 5.5 grams of cocaine, 15 grams of heroin, 930 grams of cannabis, which is approximately 150 plants between that and the resinous form of cannabis. We've also seized BB guns, over £20,000 in cash, a Range Rover Evoque, and designer clothing, which was the proceeds of that criminality. And I know Natalie's already touched on the Community Safety Partnership Serious Violence duty, which is due to strikes in 2022, so I won't touch on that one. I believe we're on to questions.
That was a fascinating presentation. Thank you both. It was really interesting to hear all the work that's going on. Members, do you have any questions, please, for Natalie or Andrew? Councillor Adams, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Councillor Inspector Boucher. I know that you're expecting to be meeting quite a number of councillors at meetings that you've been setting up almost locally, because we've got a couple coming up. It'll be very interesting to see what you're able to bring at those meetings to any specific wards. And I know there will be many questions thrown at you. Hopefully you'll have those in advance as well, before any of those meetings occur. One of those that I have to ask you at such a meeting as this, although it's very local, because my constituents really are wondering what's happening about the speeding that's going on throughout the night at some of our areas, particularly in Parnham-Fife, which has been addressed to your office, your station, over quite a number of years, and that's the Parnham-Fife bypass. How can we slow them down? That's one of the questions I will be asking you at those forthcoming meetings, and it's something that happens all over Gwent, of course. Thanks for that. If it's an inappropriate question at this forum, please shut me down now.
That's up to Inspector Boucher.
Depends how long everyone wants to stay.
Life's too short.
First of all, I'm grateful for becoming an honorary councillor. The short answer is that there is lots of work going on around speeding. So we work with the Go Safe partnership. Many, as you can imagine, we get lots and lots of reports of speeding. The road you talk about specifically is a dual carriageway. The referral process for that is that Go Safe will do a short survey. So we'll go out with the mobile speed cameras, which is more of an informative exercise. From there, we'll feed back into Go Safe then and look at whether or not there is any need for enforcement opportunities. Really good example would be Bryn Road in Parnham-Fife recently. There was a really tragic accident. Go Safe, we did a short survey of speed on the road, referred that back into Go Safe, and they went back out and they regularly deploy the speed camera van. They will do that. There's a lot of competition for the speed camera vans, but they will where it's deemed necessary. So for that one in particular, if you want to get in touch with me outside the meeting, I'll refer you into the ward manager and we'll get that looked into.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Inspector Boucher.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, I was interested in what you said about any public building with more than 100 footfall. So that type of building, do you mean 100 footfall per day or a week? And is it risk assessment you're looking to be doing with these buildings, please?
Yes, so that will be part of the protect duty for the counter-terrorism element, and the group will be set up to look at any public buildings across our borough, just to ensure that we're happy that they have enough securities in place. Because one of the big risks with counter-terrorism is obviously lone actors taking a vehicle and driving that into, you know, a large crowd, an event or a building. So it's just to make sure that we have all those security measures in place and that we are happy as a local authority that all our public buildings are secure. If that answers the question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalie. Councillor Hussey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Not sure if I'm allowed to ask questions here.
It crossed my mind too, Adrian.
Yeah. The first one's to Andrew. Do you know, Andrew, if there have been any prosecutions for the grass fires that occurred earlier on in the year?
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, and no. So there were 24 grass fires reported us last year. There is the distinction to be made. There are refuse, which is kids camping, lighting a fire, didn't put the fire out. There are people deliberately setting off bins, and there are the more major mountain fires. So across those, we've had 15 referrals in the Youth Offending Service for those that we've discovered to have been responsible for lighting refuse fires and bins on fires. There's also the category of people walking down the street, taking a wheelie bin, setting it on fire and then pushing to a park, those sorts of things. So yes, but the category is quite broad.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'd just like to congratulate you and your team on the cannabis farm bust that you done the other day.
Thank you very much,
those plants. It's great to see drugs being taken off the streets.
Yes,
My
good.
second question is to Natalie. With the outreach program, this I think is for children under 9 years of age. If they put on the outreach program, do their schools normally get informed? You know,
That's a question I'm afraid I can't answer, because we don't run the outreach programme as such. We just fund one member of staff with youth services to do outreach work for us with groups of children or individuals who are in the antisocial behaviour process. So all our children involved with that would be over 10.
right. Reason I asked, I had my car vandalised back a month or so ago. The two young lads were caught on CCTV, and the officer came up, said that they were going to go on this outreach program that I'd never heard of before. But talking to the head teacher at our local primary, she hadn't heard anything about it. So I was just wondering if they are the schools are informed of any antisocial behaviour like that.
Well, just to come back on that quickly, what we do have, so part of our strike process at the intervention stage, where we have the multi-agency meeting, where we discuss young people who are committing antisocial behaviour, education sit on that. So any information they would have from the schools on that young person, and then we would share the antisocial behaviour details with them. So we liaise that way. I know Inspector Boucher's got his hand up because I know he's doing something quite new in his area around that as well.
Inspector Boucher.
Thank you. Councillor, what I would just say, do you want to email me the details of that, and I'll look into you and find out what the disposal was. I suspect what they've done is issued a reach referral, which is something else. That is a voluntary referral to the Youth Offending Service where some intervention goes on in the background. But I'll find out exactly what kind of referral that was put in, and I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thanks,
there is
Councillor Taylor, please. You're on mute, John. You're on mute, John.
Thank you, Jez. And it's not a question; it's a comment. I was very pleased that the police are going to be re-engaging with the community again to re-establish the trust that used to be there. Unfortunately, over the last few years, for various reasons, including, I think, pressure on police budgets, that they haven't got the bodies anymore to be doing as much as they used to. But that idea of reaching out to the community and that community mapping thing, I think could work really well, and I think that could be a tool going into the future that will really help, and it help re-establish that trust that at one time was there but has been eroded because of the lack of sort of police presence in some communities to a certain extent. So I'm very pleased to hear that.
Good point. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Forehead, please.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to actually reinforce what John just said. In my own local wards, I know the local police are actually starting to do like workshops in each of the streets. We've got a high level of crime there, and I'm invited to one, but unfortunately I have to work. So yeah, I really am pleased with that, because our local officer was really in good contact with all the young people on the estate and the parents, and it was working really well until COVID kicked in, unfortunately, and we've had a little bit of a backward step. But it's really good to see the incentive is still there and they're still pushing forward to engagement. But I really do need to ask one question. What do you do with all the stuff you seize?
I'm assuming that was my question.
Yes, I think so.
It depends what it is. Do you mean stolen property or alcohol or drugs or
just everything? What happens? Because like you talked about the amount of drugs that you've seized.
Oh, okay.
What would you do with that?
So for the drugs will be destroyed. The cash seized will be held until a court awards it, and that then goes into a fund and gets redistributed elsewhere. The stolen property will be auctioned off eventually once the order comes in from the court, and booze we pour down the drain.
Thanks, Andrew. So I know it's a bit of a daft question, but it's something that's always really bothered me. Thank you.
No, I understand. We've got we've got a bit of a focus on our property stores at the minute. We haven't got big property stores, and we seize a lot of stuff. So the turnaround on getting rid of it is really, really important because it's quite costly.
Thank you for that. Are there any other questions, please, for either Natalie or Andrew? No one else? Okay, well, can I again thank Natalie and Andrew for a fascinating presentation. The breadth of work going on for safer communities is fascinating. So thanks to you, your colleagues, and all your partners for all the great work you're doing for our communities. Much appreciated. And thank you very much again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Move on then to our final item on the agenda, item 7, formation of a Gwent Public Services Board. I think this is Kath Peters again, please.
It is, yes. Thank you, Chair. And apologies, this is probably a drier report than the one you've just had from Safer Communities. I'm sorry about that. I did used to be Community Safety Manager, and it's an area of work I really, really miss because they are so good at problem solving. So back to the mundane and the formation of the Gwent Public Services Board. I'll just take you through the report very quickly. As notified to Scrutiny Committee at the last meeting, actually several meetings, there's long been an intention to form a Gwent Public Services Board. So the report gives you further information on that process and also takes you through the potential implications for Caerphilly County Borough Council. Appended to the report is a regional report. So it's quite a detailed regional report in the background. Across all of the member forums in the 5 Gwent local authority areas, from Scrutiny to Cabinet to Council, that the same report is being taken forwards. But what I've drawn out in the covering report is the implications for Caerphilly County Borough Council and yourselves as members, just to enable you to have some understanding of the process. I can touch on the appended report as well, if you like, because I was one of the co-authors. But it is a member seminar as well on Monday night, if any of you are able to make it, just to talk to you around that. You're obviously one of the member engagement bodies. We've also been to speak to a voluntary sector liaison committee, and we will be going to a town and community council liaison committee next week as well. The decision to form dissolve the individual 5 public services boards and merge as a single public services board is one for the members of the public services boards, and as you can imagine, Caerphilly County Borough Council is just one among many members, and you'll see the range of members in some of the papers before you. The intention is the Gwent Public Services Board will have oversight of what are to be created local delivery partnerships. We may change that because for those of you who will recognise the acronym is LDP, and that will cause an awful lot of confusion in local authorities. So we may be changing the name of those groups, but there will be groups in existence within each of the county borough council areas who will take forward the work on a locality basis. And one of the things the public services boards have been keen to make sure is those local groups or local partnerships are staffed with their represented officers who've got sufficient seniority to take decisions and allocate resources. So they will be created. We do have an existing lead officer group, and as you just seen, Natalie is one of our lead officers, and everybody who comes to present to you on the action area are our lead officers as well. So the report further explains the annual report and what will happen to that, and also that we will be the facilitation body. So just to take you into a little bit of detail, appended to the report is as I said, the regional report, a number of recommendations there which have gone to all member bodies. Hopefully you can get a flavour of those, but it's a real emphasis on maintaining strong local partnership delivery. There will need to be a regional scrutiny committee created, and that is because each public services board has to have a local overview and scrutiny committee. You obviously form that for the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board. There will need to be a regional scrutiny arrangement in place for the Gwent Public Services Board. So currently the scrutiny managers across the Gwent area are working to bring that into being. However, as just explained in the previous report, the current wellbeing plan runs until 2023, so you will continue to sit and scrutinise the current wellbeing plan. There will be some roles for the regional scrutiny to pick up immediately, and I'll touch on those at the end as well. The just trying to think what else I need to inform you of. Okay, so the report which is appended takes you through the background and existing structures across the region. One of the benefits that seem to be in forming the Gwent Public Services Board is there are a lot of regional partnerships, an awful lot. Hope you'll see from the appendix. It is a very confused landscape. And some of those, I think, to be fair, sitting in a governance gap at the moment. They've got no sort of senior strategic leaders. There's no scrutiny looking at some of those. So the one big benefit of forming a Gwent Public Services Board is that will come into being. The regional partnership structure is also described and the drivers have changed. It gives an update on progress to date. We've developed a set of draft terms of reference for the Gwent PSB, looking forward, because one of the things that's happening currently at the moment is we are developing the next iteration of the wellbeing plan. The wellbeing plan development starts a long time out. So while we've got a 2018 to 2023 plan, we're already thinking about the 2023 to 2028 plan currently at the moment. So a lot of development work is ongoing across ourselves and our partners in the Gwent area to do the assessment work. So it's a 12-month assessment period followed by a 12-month planning period, and we're working on that at the moment, and I will explain that a little bit more in the seminar on Monday night. The Gwent Public Services Board is going to form itself from the G10 group, and for those of you who may be aware, the G10 group has been sitting for quite a number of years. It is a collaborative body which comprises the chief executives and leaders, chief executive of the health board, chief fire officer, chief constable, etc., etc. And it's very much their desire to form properly as a Gwent Public Services Board. So in order to do that, they've got to expand their membership to make sure they're bringing in all the statutory members, and we're currently in the process of helping them to do that. There will be a performance reporting structure. Obviously, you're familiar with the performance reporting structure that you're scrutinising regularly at the moment, and there will be something similar which takes over from that. It's very likely that the Gwent Wellbeing Plan will have both regional and local projects. And we are already working in that way. So to use an example of the sort of regional projects that we're already working on together collaboratively, the electric vehicle charge points that you may have seen cropping up in your communities in public car parks, they were a Gwent regional project, but they weren't obviously a CAERPHILLY Public Services Board project. So that type of project will continue, particularly sort of some of the climate change environmental projects, because they operate at a landscape level, not at a local authority level, as you would imagine. But there will still be local planning and local activity, and that's because we need to, because there's a requirement for us to assess local community areas, and in some cases something will be very specific to a local authority area. So there was some partnership work which went on in the Lansbury Park area to improve outcomes for people within that area. So very geographical, will continue to happen. And we will be planning on our community areas. So we've got the local authority split up into 5 community planning areas, for those of you into it: Upper Rumney Valley, Mid Valleys East, Mid Valleys West, CAERPHILLY Basin and Yearsline area. And we will still be looking at those areas in depth. And obviously the data varies across the Gwent areas as well. From the West Gwent side, ourselves, Blaenau Gwent and Torfaen, got very similar demographics, very similar landscape, very similar industrial heritage background. Then you come to Newport, very small city, very more ethnically diverse, and then you've got rural Monmouthshire. So we will still need to be planning for CAERPHILLY County Borough. Yeah. As I said, the local delivery partnerships, and we will change that name, will be operating under a common set of terms of reference, and they will be the local partnership delivery body for the area. They will also enable us to bring in the more local wellbeing partners. So currently on the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board, we've got a representative from town and community councils, and that's Councillor Judith Pritchard, and she will sit on the local delivery partnership. So we will still have local wellbeing partners. Point 5.4, the report gives you a little bit more detail on what the regional scrutiny and local scrutiny arrangements will need to form as. There are a number of options for regional scrutiny, which you may wish to give us some views on this evening if you like. Obviously, it's a matter for the next AGM and the next administration after May 2022, but we'd be, obviously interested in your views. Two options are that the Partnership Scrutiny Committee continues to sit to look at will continue to sit obviously to look at the wellbeing plan until 2023, but after that point in time there are a number of options. You could continue to sit as a scrutiny committee to look at the Gwent wellbeing plan, or you could convene additional meetings of Policy and Resources Scrutiny Committee to look at the wellbeing plan. That would be around the local issues in the wellbeing plan, because don't forget the regional scrutiny would be looking at regional issues. Or the other option is local activity under the new Gwent wellbeing plan is sent to the most relevant local authority scrutiny committee. Obviously, that's a matter for after the May elections next year. I think I prefer the fact that the website will still be in existence, and there is a Gwent website that's being developed as well. So there's a Gwent website which is is currently being developed. So there will be openness and transparency at the Gwent PSB level. The CAERPHILLY Public Services Board annual report for this year, you will recall that it ran rather than till July 2020 because of the pandemic and all the disruption to reporting. It ran to September 2020. Welsh Government have agreed that it will run to September 2021 this year, because obviously it's a tie-off with the creation of the Gwent Public Services Board from September 2021. You are a statutory recipient of that report, but obviously sitting as Partnership Scrutiny Committee, you aren't going to meet again until 27th of January next year. So we will make sure that you receive CAERPHILLY Public Services Board's annual report as an information item. The other point to note is the chair of the Gwent Public Services Board will be on a 2-year rotation, as will the administration facilitation, and it's been decided that CAERPHILLY Council will do that for the first 2 years. So we will continue to provide the coordination and support to the Gwent Public Services Board. Then some minor changes required to our council constitution because it references the CAERPHILLY Wellbeing Plan, and that will happen in due course after 2022. So really just hopefully the report assures you that there will be a senior partnership still operating in CAERPHILLY. Local scrutiny will continue until 2023, and there will be scrutiny and oversight of the Gwent Public Services Board, and hopefully openness and transparency through a new Gwent website as well. And I apologise, that's quite a dry report, Chair, but I'm happy to take any questions on that.
It was very helpful, Luca. Thank you very much for giving us that good overview of the direction of travel. I've got one person who'd like to comment on this report, and that's Councillor Taylor, please. Muted, John.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I was in the process of unmuting, thanks, Chair. Yes, thanks for the report, Kath, but I've got some concerns. I'm not sure whether I'm completely happy with the idea of the Gwent-wide Public Services Board, because I'm afraid that we could be taking a lot of decision-making further away from people, and I worry about that. My other concern, you did mention that this committee had been informed that this was sort of underway, but I know I missed the last meeting, but I noted in the minutes that one of the reports presented notified members that was happening. But where was the consultation? There doesn't appear to me to have been any consultation with members of the council or with the public. And I think there should have been, because I don't think it's a very democratic way of doing the business, that these decisions are already being taken, and then there's been no consultation. Now, when the wellbeing plan was being drawn up, there was extensive public consultation, and I know a lot of members of the public took part in that consultation and helped draw up that wellbeing plan, which is one of the reasons perhaps why it's such a good plan, because the public were involved. Mm-hmm. But nobody's been consulted about this, what I consider a fundamental change from a CAERPHILLY Borough Public Services Board to a public services board that covers the 5 authorities in Gwent. And I think it's totally wrong that these decisions should have been taken without there being any consultation, because these are very, very important decisions. And when other types of decisions are being made by the council's cabinet, they usually refer to the Scrutiny Committee first to get the views of the Scrutiny Committee before the decision is made. But now we're being asked to give our views after the decision has been made. And I think it's completely the wrong way to do things. And I'm very, very annoyed that it's been done in this way. It may be that perhaps it does turn out to be a far better way of doing business, to have a Gwent-wide Public Services Board. But I think the consultation should have been done first. And I hope the people responsible for taking decisions will realise that it is important that consultation is done before the decisions are taken, not consultation about how do we implement those decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. That's excellent. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. We're not holding Kath Peters responsible for this. It wasn't her call. She did mention earlier that.
Oh no, I'm not blaming Kath personally. No, of course
not. But Kath did mention it was the Public Services Board's call, and perhaps Kath might have some insight as to why they proceeded that way without going through the consultation that many of us would have liked to see.
Of course, Chair. Yeah, happy to do that. I'll just come back to the point Councillor Taylor made around the engagement which has happened in relation to the wellbeing plan and development. That, as I alluded to previously, that is happening now, currently at the moment. So we will be doing all of that engagement. It's been done on a Gwent basis. We're all asking the same questions, but our officers are very heavily involved in making sure we get all that information from your constituents and our communities over the next couple of months. So that is going to happen in preparation. Obviously, I don't represent the Public Services Board, but perhaps I can give members some insight into the legislation and you know, where it sits. The council is really only one member of the Public Services Board. It's not a council board, so in effect we have no more say over any decisions of the board than any other member body. There are 4 statutory members of the board: ourselves, health, fire and natural resources surveyors. And the reason it's those 4 bodies of the statutory members is because they are the bodies that are Welsh Government bodies. The other invited members then are not Welsh Government bodies, but they hold the same status. So you have Gwent Police, the Police and Crime Commissioner, Public Health Wales an invited body. They're not a statutory member, but they are an invited body. Welsh Government are an invited body. The Probation Services are an invited body. So they are the kind of central government created body. So the Public Services Board is a large organisation. It's not a council board. So a council has no more ability to influence decisions than any other member within that Public Services Board. For that reason, it's a Public Services Board decision, and I know that seems a little odd in the context of having local authority staff so heavily involved in wellbeing plan delivery, but it is a Public Services Board decision, not a council decision. And the 5 Gwent Public Services Boards have taken that decision over a number of months, and it's something which is being requested at the G10 level. There are also 2 there's an audit report which came in. I forget the details now. Apologies if it's not referenced in your paper, but it would have been referenced in previous reports, which said that Public Services Boards would do better, I'm paraphrasing here, but would do better to align themselves with the other regional board structures rather than operate in silos. And also a strong suggestion from Welsh Government as well that they should consider regionalising. The reason for both of those things is the legislative landscape is very, very complicated, and I hope you can see from the appendix to this report that it is extremely complicated. There are a number of regional boards there, quite a few boards related to crime and disorder because they cropped up because of Home Office legislation. As you know, we have the Regional Partnership Board for Social Services and Wellbeing. We've got a Violence Against Women and Domestic Abuse Board, which sits at the Gwent level. We have an Area Planning Board for Substance Misuse, which sits at the Gwent level. And very much the Public Services Boards were seen as being divorced from all of this, divorced from all of these really big strategic areas, and having no, our senior leaders having no strategic oversight of what was going on and no performance, and they were almost sitting in a governance gap. And certainly this will be the first creation of Regional Scrutiny Committee as well. So that's the reasons and the drivers, and that is the reason why it wouldn't have progressed through a normal council decision-making process. You know, a normal council decision-making process would be views of scrutiny members fed back to cabinet, potentially a council decision. This wasn't a local authority decision, if I'm explaining myself properly. They are just one among many members, and likewise in the context of a regional board, pretty much like arrangements like the city deal and the regional partnership board. Even then, we're a smaller fish in a bigger pond, so very little ability to influence. And it was a very long explanation, Councillor Taylor, but I'm happy to take any subsequent questions.
It was really helpful. Thank you, Kath. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Thanks for that, Kath. I appreciate it's not a council decision as such. It's the Public Services Board decision, but we're here to scrutinise the Public Services Board at the moment. And I think the Public Services Board should have had the foresight to have actually done some consultation on this and perhaps explain to everybody all the wonderful benefits of doing it on a regional basis rather than on a local authority basis. But unfortunately, they didn't consult. And I think that was a bad move by the Public Services Board. I won't blame the council, except the council is part of that. And as you said, the G10, we're pushing it as well. And as you said earlier, the G10 made up of the chief executives and the leaders of the councils and a few other people. So I'm still concerned that no consultation was carried out. And I think the Public Services Board should have done that consultation before the decisions were actually taken.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do any other members have any questions or comments, please? No. Mike Adams.
Yeah. Okay. Whilst much of that was going on, I was reminding myself, Chair, of the all that was in the Appendix 1. Listening to Kath going through her version of what perhaps the Public Service Board meant to do, and in relation to Councillor Taylor's very correct admonition of them for not taking this further line. I think much is answered actually in the appendix that they should be using in a much wider sphere to outline what a regional Public Service Board for all of Gwent should offer and hopefully will offer. Whether when this goes back to the Public Service Board, they look at perhaps a slightly different timetable, but looking at the decisions already made and the fact that elections, which are very important to who will be making up these boards after May next year, that might be a bit improbable. But let's hope that they can take the message back that consultation over the next 8 months is possible to do in the format that we find acceptable. But I think the answers are there, but they have to take them out to the public. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Anyone else, please? No. Members, we invited in the report to note the recommendations throughout the report and in the appendices, and to make any comments on the report appended, which will go to Council on the 27th of July. Do we have any comments to make, colleagues? We've noted already, obviously. Any comments? Or along the lines of Councillors Taylor and Adams, would we want to comment that we urge the Public Services Board to undertake consultation in the forthcoming period?
Yes, I'll move that, Chair.
Thank you. Is that supported? Is that seconded?
Yes, I'm willing to second that, knowing that we haven't got the kind of timetable in front of us that we would all like to do a proper job. But yes, we would recommend that we make every effort to do so.
Is that the wish of the meeting? Yes. People content?
Yes, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then hopefully officers have recorded that. And that's the last.
Chair, can I suggest you just put a hands up? Everybody puts a hands up if they support.
Yeah,
that.
okay.
Just
Can I ask colleagues, please, to put their hands up if they're in favour of the recommendation that this scrutiny committee urges the CAERPHILLY Public Services Board to undertake consultation on the proposed Gwent Public Services Board in the forthcoming period? Hands up. Yep, that's great. Thank you very much, everyone. Are you content with that, Kath? Sorry, Kath.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Jay. That's great.
My thanks to all officers, especially Kath Peters, who's played a blinder this evening. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. Thank you to members. I now declare the meeting closed.
And she's still smiling.
Well done, Kath.
Kath, I don't find
Well
your
done, Kath.
presentation